The premise of left unity is that we should principally unite with or ally with others purely on the basis of anti-capitalism. This idea has been prominent in left-wing circles both online and in real life for a good while. Thankfully, however, it has also been receiving increased criticism over the last years, something that I wish to contribute to with this video as well as laying out an alternative. Left unity sounds nice and sensible on the surface. If we want to fight and destroy the monster that is global capitalism and imperialism, wouldn't it be better to have more people united under one banner instead of having the various self-described anti-capitalists spread out throughout the various parties and organizations that exist at the time? There are, however, several wrong assumptions and misunderstandings behind this idea. These flaws mostly boil down to a lack of understanding of the nature of the deep ideological, often irreconcilable divisions that exist within the countless left tendencies and how those manifest themselves in practice, as well as the different understandings of capitalism and what it means to be an anti-capitalist. Remember that there exist plenty of social democratic green parties that also would describe themselves as anti-capitalists, although they very much aren't, at least not according to the Marxist or generally revolutionary viewpoint. This lack of understanding can, for example, be of the fact that anarchists and communists in fact do not have the same end goal in mind, since anarchists reject any and all kind of authority or hierarchy over the individual, while communists do not, and instead endorse discipline and leadership as necessary components to efficient social organization. The anarchist and Marxist perception of communism are therefore fundamentally different and in contradiction, something that I most likely will elaborate on in a future video. Still, it holds true that you can't reconcile diametrically opposed positions such as authority and discipline to anti-authority and anti-discipline. There aren't only divisions in what our goals are, but in how to achieve those too, both immediate and long-term. An anarchist will never tolerate vanguardism or strategies that rely on it, while Marxists never will be satisfied with a low-level organization and reliance on borderline or straight-out spontaneity, usually characterizing anarchist organization, something which invalidates any kind of principled unity before organization can even begin. It needs to be made clear that this isn't an attack on diversity of tactics, which is often falsely used as a defense of left unity, arguing that the differences can be settled by everyone more or less doing their own thing in accordance to their own ideologies. Not only would that make the unity pointless, but what they are suggesting is also neither practical or desirable. Not only do the various tactics used by different groups and tendencies not serve the same goal as explained previously, but the tactics often fundamentally contradict each other. We can't both build towards people's war and follow a reformist strategy. Diversity of tactics only makes sense if there is cohesion, ideological unity, and clear and generally agreed upon long and short-term goals. All successful struggles, past and current, have used all means available to them to advance the struggle while making sure to stay ideologically united and cohesive. Uniting with a whole bunch of contradictory tendencies ruins any kind of cohesion and common understanding that is necessary to wage a revolutionary war or any effective struggle at all. You will be absorbed by the capitalist system and become part of it if you attempt to do so. This is not only a question of anarchist-Marxist unity, but also Marxist-Marxist unity. There exist innumerable fundamental disagreements among Marxists that make a principled, broad Marxist unity as unfeasible as a Marxist-anarchist unity. How will the Trotskyite theory of permanent revolution come to terms with the Marxist-Leninist theory of socialism in one country? How will someone such as myself, a Maoist, who wishes to build people's war, come to terms with a left communist, who might reject any activism or organization at all? Or even smaller things like how the primacy of production thesis stands in direct contradiction to the primacy of social relations thesis. These are all questions whose answers lay out the fundamental path a party or organization takes. It is not possible to build a true unity on the premise of us being Marxists alone, and even more so based on just being anti-capitalists. Such contradictions can only be resolved by struggle. If we were to establish such a false unity, however, we would have to water down all of the ideological trends involved to the sparse, most basic agreements, which would do nothing but transform any otherwise potentially revolutionary positions into sterile and harmless words and phrases that drown in the unfocused mess that would be such a concoction. Lenin said that there can't be a revolutionary movement without revolutionary ideology. What would happen then if the revolutionary ideology is lost to false unity? Obviously, we would not have or couldn't have a revolutionary movement. The revolutionary ideology, the weapon of the working class, just like a bladed weapon, must be kept sharp to be effective, something that is not achievable by some form of arbitrary unification. What we need is a party of cadres that possess the unity and discipline necessary to lead the working class, not a mass party of different tendencies to tag along the spontaneous and unfocused movements that arise naturally out of class antagonisms. It is good and justified to attack and criticize each other without regard for a unity that doesn't exist. It is good to engage in two-line struggle to defeat the incorrect political line. If we disagree, we must be able to say so, for only then can the struggle for communism advance. All of this is not to say that we should exist in a virtual permanent state of war with everyone else. Tactical alliances, even with bourgeois forces, should be on the table if it serves the immediate advancement of the class struggle and the specific concrete situation allows it. An example of overall beneficial cooperation with even non-socialist forces would be this historic CPC-Kuomintang alliance against the Japanese imperialist invasion. Here the communists went into a tactical alliance with the Kuomintang to fight off the Japanese imperialists, in which they were eventually successful and made way for the success of the Chinese communists later on. During this, the communists kept themselves a separate entity and armed, and the alliance allowed for them to breathe and grow in influence without being directly attacked by the Kuomintang. Always think in terms of the end goal, but never give up principle. If it is, as said, favorable to the general course of the class struggle and the concrete specific situation allows for it, alliances and cooperation with other forces should be on the table, but never unity. Unity is achieved by pulling people to you through correct theory and practice, not by going to others and unprincipally uniting with them. If you're unable to mobilize people or grow, it might mean that either your theory or practice of that theory is wrong. It's from the masses to the masses, not merely from the masses. This principle can also be applied when dealing with other organizations. If we want to change society, we must break out of the norms and not conform to the various harmless forces that are prevalent and are allowed to grow and dominate the mainstream in the left. The core of the movement must be preserved and the correct political line continuously asserted. In a setting of dozens of parties and organizations, if one holds the correct political line and successfully puts it into practice, it'll quickly rise and outshine all the other ones, pushing the false parties into obscurity, as it happened in Peru and the Philippines, where initially tiny parties like the PCP and CPP grew into the full-fledged people's wars we know today in recent and contemporary history. One of the only meritocratic orders in the world might therefore be in the business of making revolution.